Capitol Report is a production of Senate Media Services.
Medicaid waivers are meant to help severely disabled Minnesotans receive care and support in their homes. This week, two key lawmakers outlined their frustrations with the bureaucratic barriers people with disabilities confront. Stay tuned for this and more on this week's Capitol Report. Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. Families who are struggling daily to provide care for their loved ones with severe disabilities face annual uncertainties of whether public support will continue. This financial aid, known as Medicaid waivers, that families seek are at times denied and at other times approved. Senator John Hoffman, a longtime advocate for people with disabilities and a member of the Senate Health and Human Services Reform Committee, joins me in the studio. Thanks for being here.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me back.
To set this up, Minnesota spends more than $3 billion a year to provide services to people with severe disabilities through Medicaid waivers. What is surprising is that there are disparities county by county for these benefits. According to the Star Tribune, there are 60 counties that grant few to no waivers, whereas in Dakota County, grants average $109,000, and in Stearns County, the average is $50,000. So large disparities across the state. Why is this?
You know, there's an old saying that when you've seen one Medicaid program for a state, you've seen one Medicaid program for the state. Every state defines how their Medicaid program is going to work. And in Minnesota, 75% of all federal dollars come in the form of Medicaid, right? 75% of that 75% are to go to people with disabilities and our elderly. And we have a very small system where we set up, it's a flow through to the counties. It's local based. Everybody, you know, local control is where they're at. And that's got its pluses, but it's also got its negatives, and we're starting to highlight some of these negatives that you're seeing here. Yeah.
Can and should the state come up with uniform standards to address all of these disparities?
And they should, and we have in the past. Like, for example, a couple of years ago, we passed a bill that said you have to spend 97% of your allocated waivered dollars that are spent. To hear the story of 60% of it not being spent, it brings sadness to me, because there are people with disabilities that deserve those services, right? Their other alternative, why they have a waiver, is because they're waiving their right to institutionalized care. That's the only real mandate under Medicaid, is nursing home or institution. So you're waiving that. That's where those waivers come into play. And so you're leaving people not a good opportunity in life if you take away their right to be happy in life.
So an entire cottage industry has developed around these complexities. Real estate agents, waiver advisors, and support planners all exist now to help families navigate. Families are selling their homes and moving to counties for a better shot at a waiver. Some families hire private nursing firms to do an assessment that then can be submitted. Facebook has become a resource for families trying to understand how to navigate. Is there a way to make this simpler?
It's the network. It should be simpler. I think one of the things it has to start with is how you devolve that information from the state down to the local level, how you manage that. Why is there 25% turnover in the folks that are in min choices, for example? I'll give you that. Or you're doing third party now case managing. You've got away from the case managers being county case managers to now a third party that's doing the case managing, where you don't have a relationship that's been built. And why I say the word relationship, years ago under early intervention services, they found out that what do families really want when it comes to services? And a lot of the industry experts thought, well, they wanted services and they wanted X and this widget or that widget. No, Dr. Carl Dunst, the report came back and said families want to be listened to, valued, and respected, right? So hence that same kind of a value or that feeling, that's why you see the Facebook thing happening. People are trying to surround themselves with people that are going to understand where they're at and what their wants, wishes, and desires are. We could learn from that example and maybe enhance that. Family Voices of Minnesota, the family structure, the family support pieces, the parent-to-parent models that are out there are all things that we should be doing better in Minnesota, and we're not. And it's really unfortunate that we've become this bureaucratic, draconian style when it comes to people with disabilities. The family in one of those articles was so stressed out, and you could feel. The article was written well. Chris
the Star Tribune.
Oh my God, yeah. I tell you, the guy
yeah.
knows how to write, and there you could feel the stress of that family, because that is really truly there. I mean, the outcomes for families and people with disabilities, poverty and disability go hand in hand. That's the desirable outcome? No. these families are under a lot of stress. Hence, they're going to find a place where they're going to relieve some of that stress. And the system should be orchestrated and well organized, and
now
it's not.
You mentioned MinChoices, which was created by the Department of Human Services as an assessment tool in 2013. It's a computer application that was meant to simplify the process. According to the DHS website, a revision is in progress. But what is the value of this tool? Because it sounds like it's not working very well.
I think, yeah, Senator Abeler even said it's not working well, right? There's a lot of flaws. I even said they dropped the ball, they dropped it hard. I absolutely believe that. They didn't think about how this was going to be well executed. It's a good idea. Let's organize it so we can find out, where the commonality is. How do we integrate? How do we do the integration of those services and supports? But why should a family have to sit through 6 to 8 hours and not be personally connected to this? And the stories that I read in the article about the person whipping open their laptop, not even saying hi to the individual that they're doing, and the family stressing out on whether or not if they answer something wrong, it's going to cost them. And the answer is yes, it costs some families a lot. A lot of those services were gone. These are needed services that we have an obligation to provide, a moral obligation to provide.
The Star Tribune article highlights the uncertainty that exists. You're talking about the stress that these families are under, because often when their service request is denied, there is no explanation. The Star Tribune also reports that appeals have steadily risen over the last 5 years. So what can be done to bring transparency to this process so that people understand why decisions are being made the way that they are?
Get back to the way they used to do business, where they have the first primary objective. Let's care for those individuals that we have an obligation to take care of, right? Let's get the lawyers out of the room. And I don't mean that in a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. But when you send a questionnaire, you send a statement in and you get a comment back, Jim and I just did a letter, and we could have got a comment back that would have said, Jim and John, thank you very much. We're going to look into this, right? We'd have been happy. I'd have been happy. But no, I got this 2-page, I'm going to use the word again, draconian letter that was written by a lawyer and not by somebody at the Department of Human Services. Why are we doing that kind of response? Have we lost sight of our first primary objective, which is to care for those that not only qualify but need those services? It's a question, I guess, I would have out there. It starts at the top, and it really does. And then the culture of that organization has to be one that's going to be focused on the mission of the individuals that they're there to serve and the fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. Because remember, for every dollar we put on the table, the feds match that right now. That's why Minnesota's got such a rich history of taking care of people with disabilities and our elderly, is we know that that investment goes a long way and it takes and provides those services.
Briefly before we go, next week, two key Senate committees, Health and Human Services and the Reform Committee that you are a member of, are meeting to talk about this issue. What do you hope to hear or learn?
I hope I don't hear about how wonderful things are. I hope I hear about how they're going to make some real good, hard changes and choices. The structure is still the same. Sometimes you have to rethink about how we're looking at things. It's called putting on a paradigm. I'll give you an example. My wife did radio and television for years, and I sat in a meeting one time, and it was a meeting they were having with some comedians and some folks, and they were having this conversation. I said, well, tell me how you guys think. And they said, we look at reality, and then we turn it on its side and to see how that looks. Well, sometimes we have to do that in real life. We have to sometimes turn it on its side and say, well, what if we looked at it from this perspective? What does it change? Not saying just pull the switch, but I'm saying sometimes let's turn it and see how that's going to look. We lose track of, again, our mission and our vision in life when it comes to providing services to people with disabilities and our elderly, that sometimes we need to do a little paradigm and take a look and say, what can we do differently?
Senator Hoffman, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Dayton, the 40th governor of Minnesota, was honored at the state capitol recently with the unveiling of his official portrait.
Governor Dayton talked about wanting to build a greater Minnesota. It is absolutely apparent that his 8 years serving us as governor, he did exactly that. And I can tell you that the millions of Minnesotans who are grateful for the work he did, I certainly have a position to say that I, for one, know just how grateful I am.
Now, Mark is a true populist, which means that he believed that power comes from the people, not to the people. He stands on the shoulder of his dear friends Paul Wellstone. And so, as a populist, he campaigned on the core principles of tax fairness, support for public education, and putting people back to work. And he delivered with the help and sometimes the opposition of Minnesota's diverse and rich state legislature. He came into the office with a projected $6.2 billion deficit and left with a projected $1.5 billion surplus, plus $2 billion in reserves. Under his stewardship, more people went back to work than ever before in Minnesota. Mark put all his muscle into supporting public education, including all-day kindergarten, which he accomplished, and preschool for all, which is still a work in progress. And I never saw him happier as governor than when he was talking to kids and visiting classrooms. He made our tax system more fair and more progressive. And then, he signed gay marriage into law. He led the legislature to pass billions of dollars in much-needed investments in public projects, roads, bridges, wastewater treatment, the University of Minnesota's medical school, the Destination Medical Center. All these projects, plus the projects that are the pride and joy of local communities in every corner of Minnesota, not to mention this magnificent building.
More than anything during my 8 years as governor, our success gave me faith that when the cause is great enough and the stakes are high enough, we can pull together and make it work. That's the prerequisite for a viable democracy. It's also the requirement for its continuation. And I'm proud of what we accomplished together. I wish it were more. But part of democracy's genius is that no one gets to have it all their own way. Nonetheless, the bonds we established by striving together, through victories and defeats, form the rich mosaic which underlies this portrait. All of you are right here in with me.
A myriad of complexities and complications face families who are seeking Medicaid waivers to provide life-sustaining support for those with severe disabilities. Senator Jim Abler, a longtime advocate for people with disabilities and the chair of the Senate Human Services Reform Committee, joins me in this studio. Welcome.
Hey, great to be back.
The Department of Human Services has come under great scrutiny of late, leadership departures, overpayments, data breaches. Here with Medicaid waivers, we've learned about the stress and uncertainty that families with severe disabilities or members with severe disabilities face as they attempt to navigate this annual assessment process. What is your perspective on this?
It's all about the people. Despite all the administrative challenges, you have to remember the focus of what the Department of Human Services is charged to do. We and they help over 1 million people in Minnesota that have some very challenging situations, and somewhere around 100,000 or so people with disabilities of all sorts and sizes rely on them to get care that's actually going to keep them alive and hopefully help them achieve independence and some form of success that they can get in this great state. And it's not a partisan matter, it's just a really hard policy matter, and it's a really hard thing to work with the state government in some of their inflexibility. And frankly, sometimes I'm convinced they've forgotten about the people as they work on their systems.
So systems like MinChoices, which is an assessment tool that the Department of Human Services rolled out in 2013, there's a revision in process. What is your assessment of this tool? Did it do what it was meant to do? In short, no. We spend $250 million every 2 years to decide how to serve people, to do the assessment process. $250 million. Half comes from the state, half comes from the feds, but it's $250 million that I think has been close to being a failure. There's probably success stories, and the idea was to have uniformity and have a computerized system. And what's happened, it's become a depersonalized, inaccurate, skewed system. And depending upon who's looking at you decides what you're going to get or what you're not going to get. You might get too little, but you might get too much. And in a world where all the money matters to be spent as carefully as you can to help the most people, you want people to get just right. I asked Senator John Hoffman, who's also on the program, for his assessment of MinChoices. He pointed out the turnover among assessors. There's a high burnout rate of 25%. He thinks we need to go back to how it used to be done, where you had county caseworkers who had relationships with the families that would visit on an annual basis, would know their story, could offer advice, and build that relationship. Is that possible to go back to that, or what is the future here?
Well, I hope we could. I mean, sometimes there's an idea that people think of it, it makes sense on paper, and you put it into action, and then you're spending $250 million every 2 years for a system that's not working. And sometimes you don't need to spend more than 10 minutes with a family if you know about what's going on and say, well, how's John doing? And has he been successful in getting into school? Well, no, he hasn't. Oh, well, let's make a note of that. And so otherwise, these assessments can take 2 to 8 hours long. And just the fact that you have that long of an assessment on these individuals with all these challenges is itself kind of torturous. Not to mention it doesn't work. And depending on what county you go to, depends upon what you're going to get. And some people actually have found themselves shopping they move to go from some county to another county because it's run better. And Minnesota has a state-directed, county-implemented human services system. It's not working. And Senator Hoffman and I have beat our head on a wall saying, could we make it work better? We need some changes, we need some changes. Yeah, well, we're working on that. Just lately, there was an update supposed to come for the technical changes in the computer, delayed 2 years. 2 years. The Human Service Department has over 700 IT workers. And they can't put a check on the box, skip this page, because it's an irrelevant page. Very frustrating.
So, as chair of the Human Services Reform Committee, do you have ideas for ways that the Department of Human Services could better handle this situation?
Absolutely. And part of it is listen to the counties, listen to their interviewers, listen to people like me who they talk to. But unfortunately, and I'm optimistic with the new commissioner, Commissioner Jody Harpstead, that she kind of comes out of this arena that she'll go like, we can do better than that. This is not a success. I hate to call it a failure because that's kind of negative, but it's not what they set out to do. The money that's going is too rich. And it's time for the department to listen to the people in the trenches and listen to elected officials and to make this work better. It's just that important.
Is it necessary, though, to have some computer component? And how will you bring that uniformity? You mentioned that people move from county to county. There are Facebook forums that help people. There are real estate agents that help people to go to counties that operate better than other counties. Some counties give no aid at all. That's a huge nut to crack.
Well, the computers aren't going away. Welcome to the modern age, us dinosaurs, you know. But so the computers will be there, but they have to be made to work. And maybe we're asking too many questions. Maybe we're asking the wrong questions. The people on the front lines know this, and they have been pretty much told, no, we got this. And that's what I've been working with, and I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that Commissioner Harpstead will understand that and that we can bring all these good forces to bear who care about these individuals that depend so much on us to help them to succeed and to thrive. That's the goal.
One aspect that I thought also was interesting from the Star Tribune series on this was that the things that, so let's say a family gets, aid, but they want to use it to pay in part for an art class to improve mobility. Some counties will approve that, some counties won't. So it's not even just the amount of dollars that a family receives, but then when they receive those dollars, what is approved and what is not approved? What's the remedy for that?
Well, talking about it, we need to develop what are best practices. We don't know what works the best. And these individuals, even though they fit into a category, an A1B a case, they're not the same as the next one. And so as you talk to the parents, as you talk to the service companies that are providing the PCA or the home care or whatever for this individual, they aren't even allowed to really input much. And so can we become a student of this individual and help this individual thrive? And with the money we have, can we make that be the best invested? Yeah. It may look different from person to person, but each county should have the full array that it has available in its county to provide. And that's, again, a call for more discussion and more trust. DHS is working to restore trust with the state, the community, with the legislature. This is a great time, a great example of how they can reach out and say, how can we do better? And I'm confident, I'm optimistic that can happen under the new leadership that they have. I hope so.
Senator Jim Abler, thank you. Historian Brian Pease recently joined me in the House of Representatives chamber to point out some of its unique and historic features. We're here in the House chamber, the largest chamber in the Minnesota state capitol. It accommodates all 134 representatives as well as joint sessions like the governor's State of the State address. There are many unique features to this space, but I'd like to start with Minnesota, the spirit of government, which is the statuary above the speaker's desk. I understand it's not original. What's the story?
Yeah, if you were here in 1905 and sitting in the gallery seats where we are, right above us here, you probably would have had people looking back at you, because that whole archway was open with about just over 200 gallery seats. So it was public gallery viewing space to watch the House in session. And then, as it is the case in most capitals, government expands, staffing needs are greater, and so they need more office spaces. So they took out the gallery seats and put another floor of two floors of office space for the House staff to work there. So then that gave them a reason to decorate that front wall, because now you have this big space that needs some decoration. So they created a statue done by St. Paul plasterers and artists Carlo and Amerigo Brioche, and they wanted to represent the spirit of government. That's the figure at the topmost, the female figure with the star, so she's Minnesota. And so you have dates of 1849, 1858 inscribed in the book that she holds open. And then there's also, because we were part of the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, everything west of the Mississippi River was part of that purchase. And so the artist wanted to commemorate the role of Lewis and Clark in our pre-state history. So the woman who was seated, the American Indian woman, is Sacagawea, who was a guide who led Lewis and Clark. The other Native American man is just a person they would have encountered or would have helped them on the expedition. And then on the far right are not Lewis and Clark, but it's French explorers and voyageurs who were the first Europeans who came into Minnesota. So what they were doing is they were making that connection to the existing stencil work that you have in the ceiling, where you have names of Hennepin, Duluth, LaSalle, Perot, who were also those same contemporary French explorers and fur traders that were here. You know.
So it's honoring the entire history of the state, even pre-statehood.
Right. Yeah, and that's the connection. It's going back to the 1680s up to the 1800s, and then eventual statehood.
Behind the speaker's desk is a portrait of Abraham Lincoln. First, why is there a portrait of Abraham Lincoln? It wasn't part of the original design, and also there's a story about how this is not an original, it's a copy. Can you talk about that?
Sure. This was an image of Abraham Lincoln from a painting called The Peacemakers done by George Healy. And he did a couple of other paintings because that was kind of the representational figure of that piece was Abraham Lincoln. And so he wanted to go to a competition in Europe, made a copy for that exposition or that competition, and then gave copies to Elihu Washburn, who was a friend of Lincoln's from Illinois, and also one to Robert Lincoln, his son. So William Washburn, who was a brother of Elihu Washburn, acquired the painting from his brother. And then when this building was opened, the family, William Washburn's family, wanted to put that on display here. So now we had that painting on display for several decades. Well, then they wanted it back. And so it had become such an important part of the decoration of this building, of this room. So in 1937, they had Edward Brewer, a local artist, make a copy of the original painting. And that's what we have here. So it's a reproduction of the original. And then eventually that original painting that was here for those 20-some years is now in the National Portrait Gallery in the Smithsonian.
And I also understand that this depiction of Lincoln, his son, Robert Todd Lincoln, felt that this was the best representation of his father.
It was, yeah. And eventually the painting that he was given by George Healy, the artist, ended up in the White House. So
it's in the White House dining room.
It's in the White House dining room by the fireplace, yeah.
Let's talk about the speaker's chair, which was designed by Cass Gilbert, fell into disrepair, came back. What's the significance of it?
Yeah, it's what was designed for this space for the Speaker of the House to have, and it's a very ornamental, very important seat because it has a star with L'Etoile Lenore, the state motto inscribed in the back and the top of that chair. And like all the furniture in the building, we still have a lot of the historical original furniture in the building, but people, didn't always treat the furniture as well as they should. This one actually was in pretty good shape, and so it just once again kind of was out of date. the swivel things were broken on it. And then when this chamber was restored in 1989, then we brought that chair back, had it restored, and has been back in the chamber since that time.
Another element of the restoration was that the clock that was original to the chamber was found in a closet wrapped in newspaper, and now it's back resting where it belongs. But why was it hidden, and how was it found?
Yeah, it was something that I think, you had to wind it every day, so it was a maintenance issue. It seemed to be working fine when they unboxed it, and so there had to be some updates and some fixing to make it electrified. But really that was an important part of the original design. Each chamber has a big marble face clock, and so that was from the house chamber taken down. They just had a regular clock you could plug in, and then when this was discovered, it was like, let's put it back because that's where it belongs.
Let's talk about the ceiling, the very, very beautiful ceiling. I understand it was done by Elmer Garnsey. What are some of the symbols and important things to note about the ceiling?
Yeah, once again, it's an arabesque. So if you walk throughout the entire state capitol, you'll see these beautiful motifs that represent symbols of kind of ancient Rome, but also the Renaissance period, where you have festoons of products and things of Minnesota that are represented in the artwork. And that's the same thing you see here. You see a lot of M's for Minnesota. You see these elaborate motifs woven together that talk about the products of the state of Minnesota. And you'll see also some symbols that really focus on instructing the people who work here. So there's one painted stencil that has an hourglass with an owl on top and a star above its head that represents symbolically, use your time wisely, because you do have limited time to create the business for the state and the laws of the state. So you have to get your work done in a certain amount of time.
Was this a part of Cass Gilbert's plan, or is it just folklore that as the House of Representatives has the most representatives of the people, that the Speaker is looking towards the people?
It can be a combination of both. It is the largest chamber. It also fronts St. Paul because logistically, if you're designing the building and you want to make it symmetrical, the chamber is so much larger than the Senate, so you couldn't put it on one side of the building. It would make the symmetry fail. So you put it on the north side, but also it is kind of symbolically, you walk out the front of the chamber and then you see the doors to the city of St. Paul and the state of Minnesota. So a lot of people see that as the house is a little bit more of the people, more approachable in that sense of the direction of the chamber. And that could be, a lot of that could just be folklore, or something that's kind of a neat thing to say, because it is an important part of what happens in this building. It's about access to the people. So, and it's a good story. I don't want to negate it, because it really does have a connection to the people who work here as well.
Join us again next week as we delve into more topics affecting Minnesotans. I'm Shannon Loehrke, and on behalf of all of us at Senate Media Services, thanks for watching.